بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى في كتابه رياض الصالحين في باب صلة الرحم Yahya ibn Sharaf Abu Zakaria Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi says in his book Riyadh al-Salihin in the chapter of Birr al-Walidain, or in the chapter of righteousness towards the parents and good treatment of relatives. So Birr al-Walidain was Silat al-Arham. As I do some every now and then, just to ask all of you if you know this author, Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi. Do any of you know any of his other books? Yes. 40 Hadith. How many of you have heard the name 40 Hadith before? Huh?
You said how many you had the name?
No, how many books does he have? If there are any other of his books that you know of. Imam al-Nawawi. So he said, the Shaykh said 40 Hadith. So he has another book that's probably depend on the demographic that is reading. Some may know 40 Hadith al-Nawawi. So what Imam al-Nawawi did, his name is Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi. And his kunya, what is the meaning of kunya? That's the first time I've heard that. AKA. I like that shit. That's nice. Also known as, but that's what AKA stands for. So kunya is when you have Abu and then the first male child's name. Right? So if you have a boy and his name is Ahmed, you would be Abu Ahmed. Abu means father, right? And what is mother? Right. So Abu Ahmed. So his name is Abu Zakaria. His kunya is Abu Zakaria. Right? Nickname is Laqab. Laqab. So there is also a laqab. So for instance, Umar ibn al-Khattab, what is his kunya? Which is interesting. What is his kunya? That's not his kunya. Huh? Ibn is the son of, but his kunya is what? His laqab is Faruq. Right? His laqab is Faruq. And Faruq means what? That what distinguishes basically between the haqq and the ish, batil. What's interesting about Umar ibn Khattab, that he was known as Abu Ish? Abu Ish. Abu Hafs. No. Which is interesting because Hafs is the name of his ish daughter. So I've heard some that say it's the kunya is Abu of the first child, but predominantly it's of the first male child. In any case, when you have laqab is the nickname, and the kunya is Abu, first child or first male child, or first child, first male child, right? So if the first child is Mu'adh, for instance, my first child's name is Mu'adh, so I'm Abu Mu'adh, and his mother is Mu'adh. So if you're amongst, like in a jama'ah, like at a potluck, for instance, and you want to signal a sister to call your wife, this may happen, brothers. It's totally okay. It's totally fine. Okay, right? And you know her child's name, right? You know her child's name. Her child's name is Ahmed. Because you've seen Ahmed run to her and say, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." You don't know her name. You don't need to know her name, right? You say, "Excuse me, how would you call her?" That's it. Ahmed. Because sometimes we as brothers, sisters, if you're all there, you'll have to have mercy on us. Because sometimes when we want to call you, you're way over there. There's like a pool of sisters. We don't know what to do. It's like, sister, sister, sister. So if there's one, the child say, "Excuse me, Ahmed, Ahmed." This is formal and this is the most polite and the best etiquette, inshallah. And also when you're meeting a brother and you want to, you see him, you say, "Ya Aba Ahmed," or Abu Ahmed, right? Abu so-and-so, okay? So that's what is the kunya, and the nickname is what he is known for. So Abu Huraira. Is that his kunya? This one is a laqab. Why? It's a nickname. Why is it a nickname? Hurayra are kittens. Hir is cat. Or you could say kitten as well, but Hurayra is more like they call it tasghir, like a smaller version. When we put the ya, Hurayra, like Uthaymeen for Uthman, Uthaymeen, right? Or Uthaym. You have Abdullah and you have Ubaydullah. Ubayd is like a small Abdullah. Is what it is. So you have Rajul and you have Rujail, like young man, or some would say a man that acts very, mashallah, like a Rajul when he's young. So here you have, what were we saying? We were saying, nah, but I was still on the laqab part. Oh, you have Abu Huraira. His name was Huraira because he used to love kittens. Like there would be kittens that would literally be in his sleeves. He used to love kittens. And that was the one that narrated the most hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, memorized hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, Abu Huraira. So he was known as Abu Huraira. Now, there was a brother, and it's just a small little thing. There's a brother, mashallah, when we used to come to the university, he was an American brother. He lives here in Dallas. And he was probably the most hospitable brother. So when Americans would come, he would take them to the store because he knew the Americans, we have to have our this, deodorant, this and that. So we used to call him Abu Suq. He didn't like the nickname. Suq is like the store. So he's like, yeah, Abu Suq. You're like, man, stop calling me Abu Suq, man. So he's like the father of the market because he used to walk in the market. They're like, yeah, Abdul Shahid, mashallah, kif halak. They all knew him. MashaAllah, may Allah bless him. Anyway, so Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi, he was someone that I advise all of you to have this book in your home. Those of you that have been in this masjid, we've been reading this book for over 5 years now. It's called Riyadh as-Salihin, the Garden of the Righteous. Okay? And this book is written by him as well. Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi died at a young age, and he was not, never married. Kunya. Yeah. Oh, very, very good. MashaAllah. Very, very good observation, Sheikh. You can still have a kunya and not have a child. You can still have a kunya and not have a child. No. That's possible, to have a kunya and not have a child. So he wrote this book, Riyadh as-Salihin, and then also he wrote the book 40 Hadith Imam al-Nawawi. And this book 40 Hadith is what's advised for any student that's starting to study Hadith or get acquainted with Hadith if they want to memorize Hadith. This is probably the first or second book that one would memorize. And this book is 40 hadith that are comprehensive of the religion. So it'll cover, it's a very general book of aspects of the religion. And some added some hadith after that, 42 hadith to his 40. And then after that, you'll find, even during his time, that there were scholars that wrote 40 hadith for other subject matters. But his was the most famous, 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi. And that's why this book is so important in every household, in every masjid, because this is dare we say, 40 hadith 2.0, for lack of better words, right? Because he covers many different subject matters. So he has the book of jihad, the book of righteous towards parents, the book of i'tikaf, the book of fasting, the book of prayer, the book of honesty, the book of sincerity, so it's the book, and then within each book, he has a hadith that deal with the subject matter. Number one. Number two, what I love about this book is that he brings first the verses in the Quran that are under that subject matter. So if you're at your house and you have guests coming over, and you want to talk about a subject matter briefly, you're looked at as the person that, mashallah, the religious one of the community or whatever the case may be. Go to this book and look in the index or the table of contents. Okay, we have the book of righteousness towards parents. What's a verse in the Quran? Immediately, as soon as you go to the chapter, he brings the verses in the Quran that deal with the subject matter. Then he brings a hadith that deal with the subject matter. And the last thing is that he'll bring the most general and most probably famous hadith dealing with that subject matter firstly, and then he'll come with supplemental hadith that come after that. And then he also mentions, you'll find, depending on the mukharrij, they'll mention where the hadith has come from. So we'll just mention this small hadith, inshallah, and then we'll conclude. Now, عن أبي أيوب خالد بن زيد الأنصاري رضي الله عنه أن رجلا قال يا رسول الله أخبرني بعمل يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني من النار فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تعبد الله ولا تشرك به شيئا وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصل الرحمة. Abu Ayyub Khalid ibn Zayd al-Ansari radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated, a man came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. He said, direct me to a deed which will admit me to paradise and take me away from the hellfire. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, worship Allah and associate no partner with him, perform the prayer, pay almsgiving, and maintain the ties of kinship. And this hadith is recorded by Bukhari and Muslim. So what was the chapter again? What was the chapter that we're reading from? Righteousness towards parents and maintaining the kinship. So why do you think Imam an-Nawawi chose to put this hadith here? Or why was this hadith put in this chapter? Silat al-Rahim. And Silat al-Rahim is maintaining the ties of kinship. Like, what does he say about maintaining the ties of kinship here? And this is important when studying hadith as well. What did he say? So he said ties of kinship, but what was the subject? Like what? Huh? Naam. What'd you say, sir? Right, but he was saying here, he wasn't saying don't sever the ties of kinship. He was saying connecting the ties of kinship. But why did the Prophet ﷺ say it? It was a what? It was an or a response or an answer to what? To what? Right. But it was get me into heaven and what at the same time? Exactly. But it's already understood. يُدْخِلْنَ الْجَنَّةِ تُبَعَدْ مِنَ النَّارِ يعني أصلا. Right? Which is very, very interesting. The companion said, something that will get me into heaven and keep me away from the fire. It is as though he's like, I just want to go to Jannah, Ya Rasulullah. Just tell me something. Look at the concern of the companions. How many of you have went and asked someone that you respect highly of a sheikh, say, Sheikh, can you just tell me something that will allow me to go to heaven? I've never done that. Look at the kinds of questions the companions are asking the Prophet. Look at their questions. Ya Rasulullah, akhbirni an amalan yudkhilni al-jannah wa yub'adni. That's all they're concerned about. Just think about that. Before they even the answer, just think about their questions that they would ask him. Right? He said to tell me about an action that will enter me into Jannah and to separate me from the fire. The Prophet ﷺ told him one action or more than one? More than one. Right? No, I can't say. Abdullah. نعم صحيح. بعض الأركان نعم بعض الأركان ما ذكر الحج نعم صحيح صحيح.
لأنه في حديث ثاني لمعاذ بن جبل قال نفس النص يعني قال يعني ما هو الذي يقربني من الجنة ويبعدني من النار قال تعبد الله لا تشرك به شيئا وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا. قال يعني ما معناها إنه رأس الأمر الإسلام وعموده الصلاة وذروة سنامه الجهاد. نعم. وبعدين قال له يعني عليك بهذا قال
كف لسان كف عليك هذا. نعم نعم. So there's another hadith where another companion asked the Prophet ﷺ the same general question. Tell me an action that will get me into heaven and separate me from the fire. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this and more. He didn't mention maintaining the ties of kinship. He mentioned other things. He mentioned more of the pillars of Islam, and then also mentioned, and the head of affairs is fighting for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ gave him another form of advice. He said, Kuf alayka hada, to hold your tongue, and he expounded upon it. So this No. So here the Imam an-Nawawi is saying here, or Imam an-Nawawi chose this hadith because the last part of the hadith. So in the Prophet ﷺ, his answer was to worship Allah and associate no partners with him, perform the prayer, pay the zakat, and maintain the ties of kinship. So worship Allah, obviously this is the first thing that he mentioned, right? And then he said, and associate no partners with him, performing the prayer, which is another pillar of Islam, the second pillar of Islam, paying the zakat, which is another pillar of Islam, but then maintaining the ties of kinship. So here, one would ask, why didn't he mention the other pillars of Islam? What could one possible answer be?
I think it's implied.
It's implied, like Hajj is implied.
Yeah, I mean, if you are, I mean, like a shahada, if you are, I mean, good salah, and zakah, saum, and the others are, I mean, these people are, I mean, these are, we are not, I mean, just giving the pillars, we are contextualizing, in that sense.
And what's the context? That's the question. What is the context? What could possibly be the context here?
Because he focused in the important thing. يعني أفضل شيء هو الصلاة.
طيب.
فيه الزكاة لأنها هي عنوان الإيمان. يعني تعرف الإنسان بأنه مؤمن أو غير مؤمن بإنفاقه.
طيب.
الإنفاق يدل على الإيمان.
طيب, I'll give you a hint. There's another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ was asked. A man said, "Awsini." And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Oh Messenger of Allah, give me advice." And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "La taghdab." He said, "Don't get angry." He said, "Don't get angry." And then the man repeated again, "Awsini." The Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't get angry." And the man said again, "Awsini." The Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't get angry." And then the man said, "Awsini." Because the hadith says, "Faraddada miraran." Then he repeated over and over again, "Give me advice, give me advice." Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't get angry." So some of the scholars mentioned, he didn't mention any of these things. But he said, "Don't get angry," which means that probably the Prophet ﷺ what? The who? Afwan? The audience. The audience meaning who? The individual that asked the question? The one who requested no. The first one. So the person that asked the question, the Prophet ﷺ felt that it was more what? Appropriate for that particular person. You understand? That's fiqh. So someone may ask the same question, but because you know that particular person, you know the medicine to give them. You don't give them 500 milligrams, right? You give them 150. So here the Prophet ﷺ didn't mention Hajj. He probably knew, and Allah knows best, he probably knew with this person he needs to mention that last Silat al-Rahim. Now, so here the Prophet ﷺ said, وَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمَةِ وَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ. So that's the important part of here, and that's the highlighted portion. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned تَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ. And lastly, what does this say about the ties of kinship in this particular context? It shows what about the ties of kinship? Or about?
How significant it is because it came together with the pillars of Islam.
There you go. Ahsantum. He mentioned pillars of Islam. And then along with mentioning pillars of Islam, he ended it by mentioning what? The ties of kinship. And if you notice in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions worshiping Him alone, what does He accompany it with many times? اعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا. He mentions more than one time in the Quran, worship Allah and associate no partners with Him, and with the two parents have ihsan, excellence. Small little tidbit, in the Arabic language, when you put the object before the verb or the action that is done to the object, that shows what they would call takhsis, or an emphasis on that object. He says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ, literally it would translate, and with the two parents, or to the two parents, excellence should be done to them, or excellence should be done. In English, you would say, and have excellence, or be in form of excellence with the object, two parents. But in Arabic, when you put the object in the beginning, it shows the level of importance of the object. You understand? Now, so this again shows the importance of righteousness and being good to the rahim, the kinship, and how it is important along with the other pillars of Islam. And this rahim, Allahu A'lam, doesn't only mean the two doesn't only mention the walidain. It mentions also that uncle that you haven't spoken to in 20 years because you got into an argument because he owes you money. right? Or that cousin that you have long-lasting problems with. But that cousin is the son of your mom's favorite sister. And your grandmother told you all to get along years ago and you still haven't. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you now, dig deep inside of yourself and at least send a text to that relative that you do not speak to. Because if you have kids, your kids will know each other and they will end up not knowing each other. When I went to Ghana, I met cousins that I never knew because my aunties had beef. You know what beef is? Beef. Yani lahm, yani. They have problems. And I said, you're my cousin? Wow. That aunt that I've heard about, now, take it upon yourselves, dig deep, even if the person did you wrong, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at least send a text, send them a gift, send them a card, send them something they would like, and break that, inshallah, for the sake of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is muqallib al-qulub. And who knows, because of you, you will probably save generations of strife between the family, because you brought people together, because of that small action. Every single human being has a heart, and that heart has an element of softness to it and lean. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those that practice this for His sake. فَإِنَّهُ مُقَلِّبُ الْقُلُوبِ He is the one that flips the hearts. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ وَسَلَّمَ وَبَارَكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ جَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا.
And Allah said, أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ?
No, Allah said, and do you not want that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives for you? So you should forgive people, inshallah ta'ala. جزاكم الله خيرا.